Bama football practice continues to roll on, and we get closer and closer to our guest appearance at Innisfree. Oh, no, I mean the football game on, we used to call the 8A game, the 8A scrimmage. Yeah, in Tuscaloosa on April 12th. But we're going to talk about that. We got some clips from practice. Bama mailbag open, or the Cover Crimson mailbag open, and then we got a big, huge commitment to basketball. We're going to get into all that right here on Cover Crimson, brought to you by mybookie.ag. Promo code is Crimson. Of course, it's Crimson. All right, you guys ready? Everybody ready? I'm ready. All right, let's go. All right, there he is, Clint Lamb. I'm Mick Gillispie. I'm on assignment right now, Clint. I'm at the home of the famous John Boy and Billy show in Charlotte, so that's why I'm in this little booth here. Sorry about that.
You're traveling everywhere, man. They got you. You're going to wait. It was Vegas last week. Now you're in Charlotte. What's next week's stop? Where are you going to be?
I'm going to be in Huntsville and Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa twice. I'm going to be there on Tuesday at Innisfree with you after the open practice, and then I'm going to be there Saturday with you again, for the post-game show for the scrimmage, the 8A scrimmage. It doesn't have the respect to call it a game anymore if it's not a game.
Yeah, it's not a game. No, I mean, a controlled scrimmage, a practice. A lot of people, they call it 8A. We'll call it 8A. Keep it kind of simple. But we did get practice video, which there wasn't a whole lot. You know me, Mick. I always try to Nancy Drew everything, but there's just, there wasn't a whole lot to look at here. But I will say, you do see Gino Vandermark playing right guard, which he's playing center, he's playing left guard, he's competing at left guard for the starting job, playing right guard, multiple snaps here. Wilkin Formby's going to be at right tackle here in just a second. Right there he is. But, so like I said, there's not a ton that you can really get from this video as far as I thought the running back pecking order, you'll see that in just a minute. Thought it was kind of expected, but interesting. Like Dre Washington was working as the RB4 behind Jam Miller, Richard Young, and Daniel Hill. And then you had Kevin Riley, and then you had A.K. Deer. So it's like, we would kind of wondered where Dre Washington would fit into the mix. I'm not saying he's going to be RB4, but I mean, Daniel Hill, from everything we've been hearing, he's kind of making his case to be a part of Alabama's running back rotation. And Dre Washington's having to kind of acclimate to a different level of football, a different caliber of football. I'm sure it's going to take him a little bit of time, but Alabama's running back room is loaded nonetheless. See, the reason that it's kind of difficult was you just saw a bunch of walk-ons going through those drills. I mean, what are you really going to take away from that? But, defensively, we're going to be getting into a mailbag question here in just a second, and it's about the defense. And right now you're looking at the inside linebackers, and that is going to be a topic for today do we have any concerns about the inside linebackers? It's not the mailbag question, but I kind of use that as kind of a launching point. But we'll be getting into both of those two things.
Well, it's good to see the guys out there practicing. They had their first scrimmage. We covered that. They'll have another scrimmage coming up on Friday, right? And then, then you get into the 8A game or whatever that's going to look like. Deion Sanders, and I know we talked about this before, he wanted to actually play a real game.
And so they wouldn't let him.
Another team. Yeah, they wouldn't let him. But I love that idea. That'd be much better than, have like Ole Miss is having like the Joey Chestnut come and see how many hot dogs he can eat or something. That's great entertainment. But how about football?
Yeah,
I want to watch football.
Yeah, that's exactly. And I'm telling you, if they could have gotten something done on that front and played a game, everybody would have tuned in. I mean, if you were a college football fan, you wouldn't have cared if it was Colorado versus Syracuse. All eyeballs would have been on that game because, or scrimmage, I guess you would call it, because it's two different teams going against each other. College football teams, they're both relevant teams. They're both Power 4 teams. So that from a recruiting standpoint, that would have been phenomenal. And I think that was the NCAA's biggest gripe, is what sort of advantages I give. Anybody else, I guess, could do it too, but it's just it being kind of on short notice. I don't know, Mick. I hope that that's something that ends up being a thing in the future. Kalen DeBoer he was asked about that, and I thought his answer was interesting because he brought up injuries, the fact that you kind of make it through the season, then you have all your guys kind of go get light surgeries that doesn't hold them out for too long, but at the same time, they're not available for the spring. They're limited for the spring. Like if Alabama were to hold a scrimmage or a game against another opponent, Caden Proctor wouldn't be out there. Justin Jefferson wouldn't be out there. Deontay Lawson wouldn't be out there. Keon Sabb wouldn't be out there. And from a fan's perspective, you're like, oh, I mean, that's fine. I would actually like to see some of these younger guys get some reps. This could be viewed as like a preseason type of situation. I mean, Kalen DeBoer's already, he's not on the hot seat, but he's already under a lot of pressure. It doesn't matter who's out. If you go out and you lose to a Syracuse in a spring game, or certain positions don't look good, the fan base is going to go absolutely wild. The narratives are going to run rampant and wild. And then you've got a transfer portal window post that. So if guys don't, have the kind of performance they want, or they don't get the playing time in that game that they want, or maybe, fans are criticizing them because they look bad. Or maybe we're talking about Dre Washington. He's RB4 right now, in the pecking order. It's like, would they enter the transfer portal right after the spring? Like, could you lead the guys to the transfer portal more? There's a lot of things to look at, a lot of disadvantages. So while from an entertainment standpoint, I would absolutely love it, you've got to also understand from the coach's perspective that it would have a lot of downfalls or potential downfalls too. And he didn't say that he would never entertain it. He would have to look at it, in the future and see kind of, weigh the pros and cons. But just with how Alabama operates and the fact it's like guys play through some nagging injuries, they get to the end of the year and they get surgery, and now you've got a ton of guys out. Wouldn't matter how many players were out or who wasn't available. If Alabama didn't perform like fans wanted them to perform, there would be a ton of criticism from a lot of people. So, that's just part of it, Mick.
Well, you know what? They're the game's changing. The rules are changing. I don't even know what the rules are half of the time, so it'd be nice to see them make rules that benefit the fan, right? And I don't feel like we've done a lot of that lately. It feels like most of the rules are benefiting the players, and basically allowing them to do whatever they want. But it would be nice to see stuff like, hey, look, we're the ones paying the bills here, one way or the other, right? And it would be nice to get more football. It would be nice to also have an actual, some sort of structure, right? Where, it wasn't the Wild West. And I don't think it would be awful if everybody played one game if they wanted to right this time of year, because it just ramps up interest. I mean, us going to a practice, we're really not even going to they're not even really going to let anybody do anything. Come on, man. It's like, so it's nerfed, man, like Nerf balls, it's like, are we going to play with a Nerf football? Hey, when we put the flags on everybody,
Well, it's
Nerf ball with flags.
If let's hypothetically say, for argument's sake, Alabama plays UAB in a spring game, just, hey, it's in-state stuff, or maybe a UNA, or someone like that. I mean, every fan would be thrilled to see Alabama. They'd be thrilled to, any sort of football. But if UAB beats if I were to tell you going in, Alabama's going to lose in the spring game to UAB, because UAB is taking it very seriously from a recruiting standpoint. They're going to give it their absolute all, because if you can beat Alabama, that can be a confidence building thing. The narratives that are going to surround, hey, we beat Alabama. It's like, from their perspective, a lesser type of opponent, it's going to be their Super Bowl. For Alabama, it would more so, hey, we're just trying to work on some things. We're trying to get some guys reps here and there. It's like, it would be two different mentalities. It would serve two different purposes. And it's like, fans would be thrilled with the idea as long as Alabama won. But if Alabama didn't win, now you're getting trolled by Auburn fans and LSU fans and Georgia fans. And now it's not very fun. It's like, and I'm not saying that they would lose that type of game. I'm saying you're kind of putting that out there. And if that ended up happening, and it mostly would have happened because of the injuries, the narrative still would be the narrative that Alabama lost. So it's like, I just that's a huge obstacle. And for someone that's already under immense pressure, I can't necessarily blame anybody for not wanting to. It's very limited upside for you as a coach and your team the following year. And it was great for the fans, but I mean, for the most part, I mean, you get valuable game reps, I guess, and that would help. But I just think that the upside is limited for you, and the downside it's pretty substantial. So I'm not saying that I'm not for it. I'm definitely for it. I would love to see it. And even if Alabama lost to a UAB or somebody else, I still would say, hey, we got to see valuable football. I understand it is what it is. You look through it at a certain lens. It's not about the scoreboard. It's about guys getting reps, who looked good, who didn't, who needs work, where. I would be looking at it completely different than most people. And I think it would be a lot of fun and very valuable. But, you know, I'm also someone that is kind of an outsider looking in. I agree with you, though. I mean, it's about time that the fans get something beneficial out of this, because lately it's been a lot of take and not a lot of give. And this sport used to be beautiful for the fan. I mean, just everything about it was for the fan, it felt like, and just slowly but surely. And I'm not saying it shouldn't have gone in the other direction a little bit. I just think it's gone way too far, way too fast. And, you know, fans are kind of, they want something, give them a win. You know, that would be nice. I just don't know that that'll happen. I mean, it's not going to happen with the NCAA doing what they're doing. I guess you could just sue them. And at that point, they back down anytime you sue them for anything. But I guess Colorado and Syracuse will not be having a spring game, and I don't know if the future looks any different. Maybe they can get something worked out, though.
Yeah, right. Well, I think the other part of it is that, and we're going to talk about the mailbag, but just finish with, you're asking fans to pay high ticket prices. You don't get great amenities in the stadiums, and then now now you want them to pay for NIL, and then on top of all of that, you're giving them less of a product in a lot of other areas. So just as a fan of the game, I hope that they start to really look at this and just making that same point again, that the people that pay need to be taken care of.
Well, I want to make this very clear, because I'm kind of, the way that this has gone, I'm worried that people are going to get me wrong. I am with you, and I am with the average fan. I completely understand the way that my mind operates. I always want to try to understand where the other side is coming from. What makes people do what they do? Why was Kalen DeBoer answering that question the way that he was? And it's like, if I put myself in his shoes and I'm thinking about all these scenarios and how it could play out for Alabama, it's just, I kind of understand where he's coming from, but I'm right there along with you. I'm kind of a devil's advocate guy, and I'm wanting to share, okay, this is where this side's coming from. This is where this side's coming from. So if you were arguing very heavily in favor of Alabama not doing it and understanding Kalen DeBoer and all that, I'd be arguing the fan side just like you are. I'm just kind of leaning in the other way, but I want people to understand I'm very pro what Mick is saying right now. No doubt about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Clint. And thank you guys for hanging out with us. I want to remind all of you that we're brought to you by mybookie.ag. They make the lights come on, and we appreciate them a lot. We want you guys to take advantage of our code, which is Crimson, at mybookie.ag. 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip when using our code Crimson at mybookie.ag. And you got pro basketball, college basketball, with the Final Four, NBA, pro hockey, baseball, college and pros. They got all that stuff there. Go check it out. And the college baseball, shout out to Alabama's baseball team for beating Oklahoma in the series, man. Roll Tide, guys. Anyway, let's talk about the mailbag. You love the mailbag questions. You're a mailbagger. You love to read the questions. I love when you guys send the questions to Clint or me, as long as they're favorable for me. When they're not, I don't like them. No, I'm just kidding. We love all your questions and your comments, but hit us with the mailbag.
Yeah. So once again, they wanted to remain anonymous, but they asked who will be some of the tone setters on defense, captains, leaders, etc. The reason that I really like this question is I love tone setter. I love that phrase, Mick. And the reason being is I started thinking about, you can think about tone setters in a lot of different ways. Will Anderson was a fun, loving personality off the field. On the field, he was a guy that just struck fear into opposing offenses. He set the tone as far as his energy, his play, his relentlessness, his willingness to do whatever it takes to help the team. It's like that is a style of player that you want to have, obviously. But when I think of tone setters, true tone setters, I think of like, I don't know why. I think of the scary dudes like off the field, the guys that just, it was almost like if you would ask him a question, you kind of be scared to do it because you would like the Rolando McLeans of the world, Courtney Upshaw, Jonathan Allen, Ashawn Robinson was one, Reggie Ragland to an extent, Reuben Foster to an extent. Like, so there's different ways of looking at quote unquote tone setters. It's like, are they the tone setters on the field, the Reuben Fosters, the Reggie Raglands that are making the big hits? Is it the guys who are just striking fear in opposing offenses? Is it the guys who are just no nonsense, no bullshit type of players? Like in the locker room, they're going to be your tone setters where it's like, hey, you try to get something past Jonathan Allen. He'd slap. I mean, yeah, he didn't mind physical altercation if it went to that point, but he was a very intimidating presence, so I guess I don't really know what they mean by that, but I like taking the different angles because when you think about like how many of those styles of player, those Jonathan Allen, scary as hell type of guys has Alabama had in recent years? Like I said, on the field, Will Anderson was scary for everybody, but he was such a fun-loving guy. Like Alabama here lately, I guess Dallas Turner kind of had that dry, like really didn't want to answer your questions, was obviously super impactful on the field. But it just feels like in recent years, maybe you haven't had as many of those types of players as maybe you had, even leading up to like the Isaiah Buggs of the world in 2016, 2017, 2018-ish. I don't know, Mick, what do you think about it? It doesn't have to be tone setters in the way that I said, but just some defensive leaders, some captains on defense. Like who do you think Alabama turns to on that front?
Man, I mean, I think it's LT Overton, Tim Keenan. I mean, it's just guys that got to go out there and basically, bully the other side. Every time I'm doing elephant in the room with Coker and he starts talking about the defenders that he played with and how, ferocious those guys were, loyal to each other. And you think about what the success that Alabama team had winning a national championship. It starts with the defense, but you look at all of the defenses, and every year that they won a title, they had a great, ferocious defense. I mean, I think a big part of it comes from that. Like having guys that aren't afraid to go out there and set the tone. I guess that kind of slides us into what we're going to talk next, and I guess this is a good transition point because you're wondering about, or they're wondering, or we're going to talk about concerns with the inside linebacker spot. Having those waves of depth, right, and personalities that are relentless and physically intimidating, but yet intelligent at the same time. Kind of what made Alabama football successful.
Yeah, and it is an interesting dynamic with the defense because I fully expect that group to be really, really good. I expect it to be one of the better defenses in college football. But you start looking at, okay, who are leaders? I mean, obviously Tim Keenan, obviously LT Overton. I think Bray Hubbard's got a lot of leadership ability in him. Damani Jackson, Deontay Lawson, he is injured right now, but he's not going anywhere. He's going to be around the locker room. He's going to be a leader. When you start talking about tone setters and those guys, I'm not Deontay Lawson can kind of lay a big lick. I think Nakai Hill-Green brings a lot of physicality to that off-ball linebacker room. 11 and a half tackles for loss last year for Colorado, 53 stops, which is a failure. It's defined as a failure for the offense. And he had 53, which paced Colorado by a pretty wide margin. Jahad Campbell had 65, which is the most that I have seen from an Alabama player since Reuben Foster back in 2016 when he had 68. Otherwise, when you look at like Deontay Lawson led the team in 2023 with 46. Henry To'oTo'o had 49 in 2022. Christian Harris had 51 in 2021. And in 2020, he had 42. Shane Lee was in the low 40s. Dylan Moses was in the low 30s. And I'm listing the top off-ball linebackers as far as, quote-unquote stops. But then you had kind of a run there with like Reggie Ragland and Reuben Foster. Reggie Ragland had 52 in 2015. Reuben Foster had 68 in 2016. So Jihad Campbell, first of all, phenomenal job for him. But Nikhai Hill-Green, he played over 100 fewer snaps than Jihad Campbell, and he still had 53. So he was getting a stop every 12.6 snaps that he played. Jihad Campbell was getting one every 12 snaps, so pretty close there. You look at the rest of these guys, I mean, it was 14, 17, 18, 18, 22, 22. Reuben Foster was 12.1. So Nikhai Hill-Green, as far as the physicality that he brings to the table, not a lot of range, not going to be great in coverage, kind of a thumper downhill type of linebacker, good with the run fits, physical against the run. But I kind of wonder, Mick, if Deontay Lawson can get back healthy and he's available, whether it be in week 1 or soon after, and he can kind of return to being like an every down off ball linebacker for Alabama, instead of, last year in a lot of those obvious passing situations, you'd see Jihad Campbell slide out to Wolf to be a pass rusher, and you'd see Justin Jefferson come on the field as that second off-ball linebacker because of his coverability and athleticism. Well, instead of like shifting Nikhai Hill-Green out to an edge, you can just simply take him off the field, but then put in Justin Jefferson. Now you've kind of got a platoon. Kind of reminds me maybe of back in the day of like the Nico Johnson, CJ Mosley platoon, where it was more of like, obviously CJ Mosley would play more than just passing downs. He would get other opportunities, but you very rarely saw Nico Johnson playing in passing situations. It might be something similar, as far as what we see this year with Nikhai Hill-Green being a leader, kind of a tone setter. He's got that physicality. He's a thumper for sure, but he might not be like an every down guy like we've seen. Might be more of a platoon approach.
Yeah, right. And I mean, that's why I was interested to see kind of what you thought on this. What about like some of these guys that they just got, like the straight out of high school, signees? Could any of those jump in and help out? And I know that this is one of those positions where you don't see that a whole lot, but sometimes you're put in a spot where you need those guys.
Well, I think that the coaching staff really likes Caden Jones, who is not a freshman. He played last year on special teams, got some spot snaps. I think he's going to be listed as a sophomore, but he's been working with the first team defense because Nikhai Hill-Green's still adjusting to new surroundings. Justin Jefferson's not available. Deontay Lawson's not available. At least, Justin Jefferson is limited. He's not fully available. So when it goes to scrimmage type of work, a lot of Caden Jones, you've seen some QB Reese, but Abdul Sanders is a guy who we've heard really good things about. He's kind of been a lower rated guy, kind of like Luke Metz. Duke Johnson kind of fell in the recruiting rankings, mostly due to size and the fact that he wasn't super experienced as an off-ball linebacker. Probably going to take him a little bit of time. But I really liked the off-ball group they signed, despite the fact the recruiting rankings really didn't reflect it. And from everything that we've heard, Abdul Sanders is probably going to be a guy who contributes in some form or fashion. It might be special teams. It might be, just providing some depth. You lost Justin Okoronkwo. You lost Sterling Dixon. You lost Jeremiah Alexander. Like, somebody's got to fill those depth spots. It's sounding like Abdul Sanders is going to be kind of positioning himself in that range. And I think Caden Jones is going to be LB4, but when you start getting into LB5 and stuff that's not part of that big three, the starting three, I definitely think Sanders has a chance to be a part of that second kind of wave and get in at the end of some of these games and, kind of get his feet wet in preparation for, 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is going to be interesting just to see who that kind of like, you talk about some of those guys, who that come out of nowhere guy is going to be for this year, right? That could be a show that we talk about too, somebody where we just pick a couple players that are totally off of the, totally out of the picture, but, maybe somehow, some way, you can't take like Dijon Lee, right? You can't take Ryan Williams. You can't take like Latsir Brooks. I mean, who's somebody that we, that no one's talking about that ends up being a contributor on this 2025 team? It's for another day. But you guys can get in the comment section and tell us that, or covercrimson.com. And, I'm constantly on the message board. Clint does a great job of keeping you updated, and the rest of our crew over there. But covercrimson.com, message board, $25 off the annual subscription when you guys join us right now. All right. Switching gears, Clint, Nate Oates, fresh off of the Elite Eight loss, was immediately crunching the roster. And he has added a tree, a 7-footer from Bucknell.
Yeah, Noah Williamson, 7 foot, 250 pounds. So they needed another like true center to play with Aiden Sherrill down there. I kind of rotate with him. And that was one of the first things that Nate Oates identified. And this guy can step out and shoot, shoot the 3-pointer. Like, he's 17, 17.4 points, 7.6 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 1.1 blocks. He was rated or is rated as the number 18 player in the transfer portal, according to On3, and the number 2 center. And he fills a need with Amori heading off to, exhausting all of his eligibility on the college level. They really needed somebody like this. You lose Nas Cunningham to the transfer portal. And we knew that there was going to be some guys leaving on top of what we're already expecting with Sears and Nelson and Amori and Youngblood. But, I think that the basketball roster it's still in good shape. I think adding players like this, and I don't think they're even close to being done. I'd probably say at least 2 more transfer portal guys, maybe 3. I mean, I don't really know. I don't know what it would take, but I think you at least got a couple more. But this is a really good first step for Nate Oates, and the fact that it happened so quickly after that loss, it's you immediately move on to the next thing if you're Nate Oates and start working on next year, and that's exactly what he's doing.
Well, and that's a trait that we saw with Nick Saban. Win, lose, or draw, he was always working on the next team the minute that the season ended. Great coaches do that. And as much as it sucks that Bama's not in the Final Four, man, they still had it's been amazing. Like even a season like this where they didn't accomplish what they wanted to. When the Elite Eight is disappointing and your program's in a good place, so we'll see what it looks like without Mark Sears and Grant Nelson and the rest of those guys. But I'm sure they'll go out and find the next superstar. Clint, covercrimson.com, was just looking at the message board while we were on the show, seeing what was going on over there. What do you got for us? What are some reasons to go hang out with you at covercrimson.com?
Put up my quick scouting report on Isaiah Horton, just because we talked a lot about the receivers yesterday. And, I did want when I talk about a guy like Isaiah Horton, a lot of times I talk about what he could be or what I think he kind of is. He wasn't really utilized in some of the ways that I talk about him at Miami. Like as far as like he's got the ability to press vertically. He's got the ability to go up and win those 50-50 balls. He's a big body receiver, continues to get bigger, but he really wasn't utilized on those go routes or those fades, where you kind of use him down the sidelines and all that. A lot of his stuff was a lot of in-breaking routes, quick slants, digs, curls, all those kind of things, post. And so watching him on tape, it's like, okay, he's really kind of not utilizing the way that you would expect for a big body receiver. But I think that there's more to him than what he was and how he was used at Miami. I think he probably had some growing to do in that area as far as, winning vertically and doing some of that. You saw it every once in a while. And when I did see it, it felt like he was pretty effective at it. For whatever reason, he just wasn't really utilized a whole lot in that way. And so when you start talking about him being able to expand and add that to the repertoire, as far as the guy's got good movement on all that, RPO slant stuff. He's actually quite effective. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he evolves at Alabama. But it's just like I shared a scouting report over there talking about a lot of this, a lot more so in depth, the ADOT, the average depth of target for him compared to a lot of these other Alabama receivers. What does that mean? All that stuff is being talked about over at covercrimson.com. And we got a lot of stuff like that, not only on the board already, but coming pretty soon, because I'm continuing to dive into all these guys. So if you haven't already, go sign up and join in on the conversation.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us again. Brought to you by mybookie.ag. 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip when using the code Crimson on mybookie.ag. Old school radio. I'm gonna talk about John Boy and Billy for a second. It's pretty cool that I'm about to go upstairs and be on the John Boy and Billy show. I'm not telling you guys I've listened to John Boy and Billy my entire life, because I haven't, but I've known who they were my entire life, right? They were kind of associated with NASCAR. My grandfather was a big NASCAR guy. And so I got into NASCAR with Dale Earnhardt and Rusty and all those guys back in the day. And then the driver would actually come on the show. The winning driver would come on their nationally syndicated radio show. But this is a show that you can hear in Alabama, North Carolina, all over the South, probably all 13 southern states. So, pretty cool to get to do that today. I apologize for if the sound wasn't great in here, but that's what we're doing. I'll let you guys know when the show's going to air. So if you listen to John Boy and Billy in the morning, that you'll hear me on there. And maybe I won't go up there. Maybe I can make the guy laugh a little bit before I get out. But anyway, Clint, roll tide, my friend.